Good afternoon, Avnish. Pleasure to have you here today.
Likewise.
As I was telling you before we came here, we're starting a podcast series. It's called T-Hub Brewery. The intent of this is to make sure that there are many successful entrepreneurs in Hyderabad, and essentially to get them to share their stories, their learnings, their insights, their perspectives on how they have built their businesses,
Right.
and what can be done, and to make Hyderabad the place to be in if you're
Right.
doing entrepreneurship of any kind. Yeah.
Right.
So that's the context. So pleasure to have you here today. So maybe let's start with the beginning, right? So you built a very successful business, Neeru's. It's a household name in many parts of India. So talk us through the beginning. How did it start, and where you are at this journey in this point in time?
So firstly, good afternoon, and calling us to this beautiful setup of T-Hub. I think this is my second visit, but seems like I think this is one of the best infrastructures I've ever seen in this part of the city. In fact, in this part of the country. And thank you for having me over. It's always nice when people say that they want entrepreneurs. Also, they want young entrepreneurs to come up and speak up. I think which is what is asked for today. I've chosen this path because I've been listening to a lot of millennials in my time, and then how we catch up to that and then turn out your businesses and then make them what they are today. So just to give you a little history, so Neeru's is a purely Hyderabadi brand. So born and brought up here, and 1971 is when we began. So it was started by my grandmother, my late grandmother. So she was the one who sowed the seed of how a machine and embroidery and stitching can become a thing for tomorrow. And then is when my father was roughly about 14, 15-year-old. So leaving everything and to make ends meet is what the journey of Neeru's is, how it began. So earlier it wasn't Neeru's, so it was called by a different entity. But then when they got married, my parents, so Neeru is my mother. So that's how the name came in 1979 is when the brand got established as Neeru's. And even that was ahead of time because, people used to say that a mother-in-law can never do anything in the name of a daughter-in-law. But that was also very big at that moment in time, and that's how the name was kept. And they were very proactive and way ahead even in those times. And because fashion is something that creativity comes from within. And you always think of ahead and not for yesterday. You always think what's going to do good for tomorrow. So that always kept the momentum going. So my late father, Mr. Harish, who is the actual one-man army and the founder for the brand Neeru's. And of course, with the support of his wife, is how the brand was built and stitched together from strength to strength for the last over 4 decades now. So somebody, our customer who used to be a 16-year-old and today a 60-year-old is still a shopper at Neeru's. So that's our real... the income, if you ask me, what's the respect what the brand has gained is when I come across conversations when they come and tell me that, I was just 10, I was just 15 when I used to come with my mother, and today I'm 50 and I'm still coming to Neeru's. The kind of brand that has sustained for so many years, it's always commendable, and we love it because we've grown with Neeru's. And that's the real journey that Neeru's holds in the hearts of people in Hyderabad. And so 70s...
Avnish,
Yeah.
for those who are not necessarily from Hyderabad, right?
Right.
Because this is going out nationally.
Right.
So in Neeru's, what's the typical customer profile? What do you cater to, and what do you kind of offer to them?
So I think over the period of years, we've done quite a bit of expansion. So there was a moment in time when everybody said that a brand from Hyderabad, can it be a statewide brand? Can it be a regional brand? Can it also be a national brand? So there's always a question how to take a local thing nationally. So that's one challenge that at Neeru's that we had to overcome. So later when I stepped...
the affordable luxury business.
That's right. So we are in the aspirational side. So we call ourselves more like a bridge to luxury, more affordable luxury, where people are aspiring to wear something. You see something, if, for example, you go on a Friday, watch a movie, and you see your favorite cine star wearing something, and then you aspire to wear it. And then when you see the credits of the film, it talks about big designers who have been part of the designing of it. But but the real end customer, where do you buy that product? Where I aspire to wear a lehenga like maybe a Deepika Padukone or a Alia Bhatt, but where can I buy it for my wedding? And can I buy it at my price? Because not everybody can afford a lehenga which is, 7-8 figures. And, that's how you try to balance. And then it has to go to your ticket size as well. So that's where a brand like Neeru's comes to play. We are probably one of the first and one of the only brands to enter this virgin space of women ethnic wear, which is available across the country. So you
How
see,
many stores do you have now?
so we are close to about 52 stores now, and that is our own exclusive stores in more than 16 cities across the country. And we work with a shop-in-shop format with large format stores like Landmark Group, Shop to Stop, Future Group, and Reliance. And we are there with close to about more than 100 point of sales with them. So all in all, close to about 150 point of sales that we actually cross with Neeru's in 2 countries, 16 cities.
How many people work for Neeru today?
So we are a team of just over 1,000 people now, and so from all genres, all walks of society, from significantly women working for Neeru, significantly people who have been probably the first payroll is still with Neeru. So he's been there for about good 40 years, 45 years with us. So it's more like a legacy brand. So legacy comes with its own.
So Avnish, how long has you been in charge? I mean, you said mom started it right along with your grandmother.
Correct.
And then dad was involved.
Correct.
But you took over as MD. When did you take over?
So in 2011 is when I did my master's in entrepreneurship. Very obvious choice, because that was the time when the word entrepreneurship was very new. Not many universities across the globe were talking about things like this. And I was very adamant that, our family business is strong, and being a second generation and a little bit, it all flows in your blood when you talk about fashion. And that's how I thought that, post my masters, I would want to step into this and do something different with the brand that's already available. And so in 2012 is when I actually stepped into the company very significantly and said that, we are here to change, we are here to grow. Let's not just focus on being one city-oriented brand. How can we make this name go global and national? And that's what the journey was. So in that scenario, I did my master's from London, so I had a lot of backlog and things and memories attached to how retail and branding and fashion happened in a country like London and in England. And so I took a lot of data back, and then is when after I came in, the first initiative was to have a mega store which looks like London, which looks very international, but present in Hyderabad. So we, on 12 December 2012, we came up with our flagship store in Jubilee Hills in Hyderabad, which was about 30,000 square feet of plush shopping space of ethnic wear, one of a kind in the country, with one of the best interiors and best lighting, best merchandise. And that's how we evolved and made Neeru's, that whatever we do, we need to be the best in it. But you can't just be by making a good store, your merchandise. We say for retail is all 4S. So your staff, stock, service, and sales all have to sync in well. So you have to be best in all 4 angles of retail. So that's what we achieved with that one store, and that was my first and one of the most heart-touching initiatives. And therein after, like you said, year on year, the journey kept coming up. And but quite recently, in 2018, I lost my father. And then is when the tag from a director to a managing director came in. And then is when the real responsibilities, that how you hold up to a legacy brand. And then when you are the only one running it, so what is everything that comes with it, is when I think things got changed. And what I could learn in 6 years. Yeah, pretty much.
So let me ask you a question there. Stop you there. So obviously, many of the people whom you worked with would have been there when you were still, let's say, very, very young.
Correct.
And now, you are going off, essentially overseeing what they're doing. How easy or how difficult was it, to get them to adapt to your, I'm assuming you have a certain style, and dad would have had a certain style.
Right.
How easy or difficult, what challenges did you see, in making that transition?
Right.
And then, how did you, create that, influence, impact, saying that, listen, this is the way I'm going to do things. So were there any key takeaways from that?
So I was lucky that I spent at least a good decade with him at the helm of it, and me under him. And the real guide will always be someone who you work with day in, day out. And I was lucky that in that terms was my father himself. And the kind of principles that Neeru's was brought in, and the kind of value the brand holds for its team and the whole staff and the whole Neeru's family, as we call it. And so that instinct in every person came out really emotionally when when we lost him. And then there was one day that I was sitting, and then we had a whole big mega group meeting. And because we keep doing our yearly annual general meetings, and when we all caught up and informally, like how impromptu we are today. So when I heard their vision for the brand, I heard their stories of what actually makes them stand with me today and what will make them stand for the next decade. So the kind of answers I got, so basically every person who was above 50 said that I want to go back to my 20. The reason being that we all know that you're young and you want to take this very strongly, and we have to match up to your energy levels. And we all want to become 20 again and do that 20 to 30 again with you, where we can run and make the brand more evident and more expandable throughout the country. And the kind of answers like that, that increases your zeal and that adrenaline rush that you get out of certain things like that. And that's how that word legacy comes into place. So they all knew, they were aware that they are part of a legacy.
Suppose if I were to ask you, Avnish, if there are like 4 or 5 values and guiding principles which you hold like really dear type of thing, which you try to live,
right?
Some of which obviously you do under the guidance of dad, and obviously some things you would have done.
Correct.
What are those 4 or 5 guiding values and principles which you hold really dear, and which is something which most entrepreneurs have a certain whatever belief system ethos?
Right. So I think as personally, the one big motto of Neeru's also is oneness. So why oneness is because we all want to work in a unified force. Many a times you get opportunity to do something and then you end up becoming credit taker. Usually when it happens in your actual daily life, तो जो अच्छा है वो मैंने किया, जो बुरा है वो इसने किया. So that is one principle that people have to let go. That how people used to say in our earlier times, neki karo aur darya mein dalo. So you do good and you forget about it. There's no one to stand and take credit or give credit for. If you've done good, it's but obvious that you're going to get a good output out of it. So that word oneness, when it comes across your path, so when you work in a team, you're working for some other brand, you're getting some partners on board. So when you have that instinct of oneness under you, then is when you achieve good, better goals, instead of being having things of selfish interest, and proving yourself that I can do this, that I can become we, then we can conquer everything around you. So that we is a very big instinct, because you have to work with the team. It's not just you and me. And today, if we are shooting this, we are a whole crew making this happen today. If we work together, I think we do it more efficiently, better, and time saving, and actually get the best out of it. So that is one big principle, that work in oneness is a very big motto of my life. Secondly, I feel that in today's time, that I was told by one of your team members that if you have taken any kind of a New Year resolution, so this year I don't know why I've spoken to myself and to everybody that we have to work on something called reducing your response time for everything possible. So one day when I sit at my house, I wake up and say that today I want to have a very nice omelette, but I know there's no egg in my house, and there's somebody taking care of me, and somebody like a Rapid or a Blinkit or many apps like that suddenly tell you 10 minutes में आपके घर में अंडा आएगा. So he's making my dream come true. So when he can do that for me in 10 minutes, why can't I reduce my response time for all my works in 10 minutes? So that was my 1st January oath to myself and to entire team. जब 10 मिनट में घर में अंडा आ सकता है, तो 10 मिनट में हर problem solve हो सकता है. So let's reduce the response time of everything that we do.
Sure. I'm going to switch back to asking you a couple of questions. Like,
right.
In terms of fashion, lifestyle are changing. So obviously, in India, for example, I was just reading the other day that in the wedding season, a few months ago,
right,
which is on, close to some 375 billion rupees were spent and all
Correct.
that. So we love parties, we
Right.
love festivals,
Right.
all that stuff. And and obviously yours is, obviously for every occasion, customers will come. What do you see evolution of the Neeru's brand? Where do you see it going from where it is today? So one is obviously the expand stores.
Correct.
You also mentioned that online is still relatively a smaller part.
A smaller part.
But I'm assuming those are two obvious things, which is
Correct.
online and this thing.
Correct.
But other than that, from a core offering standpoint,
Right.
where do you see this going?
So, like, to answer your first question, so occasions in India are plenty. So I think every part of India, every 15 days and every 100 kilometers, there's some celebration happening, from a Pongal to a Ugadi to a Diwali, Holi, and unlike the West culture where you bring up a occasion like I have to celebrate a Thanksgiving today, I have to say thanks for something. But in India, every 15 days you are saying thanks. Thank you, God, that I'm here doing this, and you're worshipping. So the best part about India is every 15 days there's an occasion. And weddings are the biggest occasion that any Indian can ever make for his in his lifetime. So if you are a father, if you are a daughter, so daughter thinks I want to have the best wedding, the most magical wedding in my life. For a father, it's always a thing that I've done so much in my life. The wedding of my daughter or my son has to be one of the best. So that's how the Indian culture works around. And luckily, I think lately people are celebrating not just one, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like a week-long, month-long wedding preps. So earlier it used to be just wedding and reception. Hyderabadi mein bolo to shaadi hai aur walima aur ghar jana hai. But now it has become a trend that, there has to be a mehndi, there has to be a sangeet, there has to be a shadi, reception, pre-party, post-party, dinners, lunches, sundowners. So there are so many. So people are actually hunting that for every occasion I want to look good. So, how is that I'm going to look? Firstly, it's always clothes. It's always fashion that comes up first in their mindsets. And that's how I think people like us, brands like us take the pull from there. And, we also want to give them the best. So when you come to our store, we ask you, are you looking for a mehndi or a reception or a wedding or a sundown? Are you going for a destination wedding? You want something in a lighter weight? So there's so many things that we can actually cater to. Firstly, that about the Indian wedding scenario and the occasion scenario. And secondly, when you talk about areas of expansion, so more in the retail language, we talk something like omni-channel. So we are actually trying hard to be a more omni-channel oriented kind of a brand where our hardware, software, front end, back end, and the brick and mortar business actually supports the online business. And we have our stores as the storage capacities and fulfillment centers rather than stacking up in a warehouse and then providing it. So omni-channel is the way forward. Only online or only retail may be a difficult thing in the times to come in the next 5 to 10 years. And
So how important is the whole merchandising thing?
so that's the most tricky part. So for me, I think I can have anybody do everything in my company, from a finance to a HR to a marketing. But merchandising is how fast
Gauge, kya
Yeah.
pattern?
chalega,
Kya chal-
kya hoga aage. So that is the biggest focus that one has to make. So as a promoter of the brand, as an entrepreneur, and as a one that who always thinks that fashion comes first, for me it's always the struggle that what is going to happen for the next 6 months is our more worry rather than what I have to manage today. So I know I have people managing everything under me for everything that is there, but what about the fashion forecast which is going to come? And we have to be 1 or 2 seasons ahead because we need lead time for production. And then is when the whole team of designers, so we have very equipped manpower that actually comes forward, and we read fashions from every aspect of life. What has been trending well, what is doing well on movies, what is doing well on international platform, what are handbags being made as, what are footwear being made as. So you don't know where the inspiration will come, where people will start. If I come here, I see a lot of yellow and gray, so my mind is bound to talk more yellow and gray. The first color you ask me, what is the color that you see? It's yellow. So, that's what people, so what you show is what you sell. So when you forecast it, you have to be so apt that people adapt. For an example, I'll tell you, so the whole last year we were into a color called lilac. So lavender. So when initially when we were discussing with our teams, so they said, no, lilac is a very tricky color. Dark skin might not take it, fair skin might take it, but I don't know how it will do. But as a lead time, we knew that it'll take 6 months to bring the whole store, and every store should have good lilac around. And we actually turned the tables, and the way we promoted lilac in the country, no designer, no retailer had ever done it. And today, everybody, every store is actually behind that color tone lilac, and then they're finding those paint shade cards, Pantone cards, just to find what is the right lilac. But now we are so ahead that we've been selling lilac and anything, and hands down I can take the credit that as Neeru's we had promoted this color a lot, which has become the season's color. So in embroideries and things like that. So fashion is so very intricate. So you catch up things, this cut of lehenga. So we had something called which sold like Alia cut. So there was something that Alia Bhatt wore, and it started trending in the entire country. So people don't know what is Alia cut, but
that brings me to a question.
Yeah.
So you had some pretty, well-known brand ambassadors.
Right.
Yeah. So obviously, merchandising we spoke about. Then obviously branding is, how important is branding?
So fashion is all about influencing. So today if I influence you to wear a checkered shirt, so you are influenced somehow that यार Avnish ने बोला था checks नहीं stripe पहनो आप पे अच्छा लगेगा. So it's all about talking fashion. So when you talk, visual comes to your mind, and until and unless you have a good visual appeal to a fashion product, maybe there is kuch kami hai usme. So which is why I think at Neeru since years and years we've been doing very different kind of marketing in terms of fashion shows, in terms of our campaigns, in terms of photo shoots, and what we bring out in terms of our marketing. I think we have been very ahead, and the customers are a very loyal stamp to it. And we've had faces like many brand ambassadors. A lot of Tollywood and Bollywood celebrities have been part of the Neeru's journey. The last being Sonam Kapoor. I think she's the epitome of fashion in the country, and she endorsed our brand for good 3 years. And the kind of time we had with her being on board, and the kind of effect she threw on our loyal customers, that if she's wearing something, it's easily acceptable. And so that kind of brand power plus a good fashion face will definitely bring a good blossomed product line, and we believe in that.
So Avnish, there's a lot of talk about sustainability.
Right.
It's now become a recurring theme, right? And
right.
So what, from a directional standpoint, what are some of the practices which Neeru's is looking at from a sustainability?
So actually our very important part of Neeru's journey is handlooms. So handloom has been very close to our hearts, because I think a big segment, we worked more than 30 years in handloom industry, and we were one of the first to bring in the concept of blouses and handloom blouses to this field of fashion back in the days of 80s and late 70s and early 80s, where people used to say that handloom is it's more like somebody like a maid servant should wear it. It's not a fashionable product. Why would anybody wear a handloom blouse or a handloom sari or a handloom suit? So it was very low profile. But the way we gave that twist and turn to a handloom, I think evidently my father, Mr. Harish, was one of those who actually, he worked with more than 600 villages back then, and more than 1,200 weavers. And that's how we created a big handloom forecast for 20 years back then. So now I think sustainability is not just how eco-friendly your product is, it's about things like these. So, there was a time when we were even far younger, so people used to say, ek time aisa aayega ki Kanjivaram ka sari will become like a painting, which will be sold on an auction. But today, after 2-3 decades, still it's accepted and worn. It's not become a painting. But it can be, because if brands like us, or if fashion honchos actually don't take it up very seriously and give time to this product line of handlooms and try to do it, because everything is going powerloom. People want quick production, they want faster production, they want cheaper price. Handloom will obviously come expensive. Handloom will always come with its own time. So all this is there. These are the repercussions of having a very eco-friendly thing on your hand. But parallelly, going organic, having things that are organic, which have been coming from the roots of this motherland. I think India is very diverse. So we work in handloom, like from products in Banaras. We work products in Kanjivarams. We work in product from Bengal. So we work
Pochampalli.
Pochampalli, Gadwal, and lot of ikkats, and everything that Andhra, Telangana also gives birth to. And all this has become such a good this thing. And trust me, we have a store in airport in Hyderabad, and people actually take a flight. And if they are not from Hyderabad, they often come to the store and say, "Kuch Hyderabad ka special do." So when you go to Chennai, a store in Chennai at airport, kuch Chennai special do. So everything special is actually handloom. So that is the best part. So this will never die. So that is one thing, but we all have to make a collective effort to keep this sustainability in our handloom industry and give it a good push and showcase it as a fashion wear. So millennials today might think wearing a nice dress is fashion and not a Kanjivaram sari. So how to convince them that even a Kanjivaram sari is a fashion wear? And we did that with 2 campaigns with Sonam Kapoor in 2018, I remember. And we were very lucky to have a great response, and a lot of millennials came up and said that, I want to wear that sari what Sonam is wearing. It wasn't an embroidered fancy sari like a red carpet sari. It was actually a proper nice Kanjivaram and a Banaras sari.
So Avnish, I'm going to ask you now a few questions about your life as an entrepreneur.
Right.
So one of the challenges of running 1,000 people, 50 stores operation is also about how do you manage your work life, right? How do you keep the balance? So that's one question. Second is, what keeps you awake at night?
So what keeps me awake at night is a very good question, because I often, when you're so tied up in your day-to-day operations, so I feel that in the night, 11:30 to 12:30 is my time on my phone. And your phone is everything, and your WhatsApp is everything nowadays. And we are into fashion, and you need some peaceful time to get some ideas, to answer responses. Teams are working in various places in the city or in the country, and they all want to know that, what we have to do with this and that. So I often tell my wife that, there's some designer who messages, क्या हुआ, reply नहीं आ रहा. मैं बोला, अगर मेरा कुछ होगा relationship में गलती तो तू जिम्मेदार है. You're asking me kya hua. My wife is thinking some random woman is messaging me saying kya hua. But your kya hua is a production of 100 sarees and not what she's thinking as. So I think what keeps me awake at night is finding fashion, scrolling through what's influencing in the world, what is trending everywhere, and catching up on trends and catching up what people are actually hooking on to. Let it be a song, let it be a movie, let it be a award show, let it be anything, any actor or any influencer doing something. I think we catch so many things from there. One design I remember, we were having a very nice fine dine dinner in Dubai in some restaurant, and I picked up one design from their mat of this thing, and suddenly everybody was like, no, you can't do this, it doesn't look good, this, that. And somehow it turned out to become a sari and lehenga, and we sold some 10,000 SKUs of that design. So you never know what becomes from a eating mat to a $1 million product line.
Eyes and ears open.
Of course.
You answered what you do between 11:30 and 12:30, going through all that, right? I notice you're quite fit. So what do you do to make sure you don't allow the stress of running 1,000 people, 50 store business,
right,
to get to you?
I'm at my extra level of kilos right now, so fit is an understatement. But then, my go-to is I think 1 hour every day of cardio. I think that cardio time that I do, I think it shreds out many things from my head and mind. I think it's my escape. So I'm not a morning person. I'm more like a night and a late night person. So I even often choose to work out at nights. And that is the time when the phone is at peace, nobody's ringing you. And, even at 9:30, 10:30, I'm still somewhere in part of a gym doing something there. And, I feel that that's my escape. That's how I release everything of a day's work or a week's work or a month's work like that. And it gives me that space and that me time which is around me. Apart from that, of course, my wife and my kids. So I think my daughter has been very strong. In fact, she was a pandemic baby, and then the kind of brightness that she throws in these tough times of COVID for a lot of people around, even brands. When you see, especially as a retailer, when the stores are shut, and you're seeing days of zero revenue, and you're still coming back home. You know, your staff is sitting at home. You know, there's nothing happening for 1 day, 1 week, a month. That's very, very, very disheartening.
I'm going to come back to you on two questions around that.
Yeah.
Okay, so one was, obviously now things are getting back to normal.
Right.
But let's say 2020, 2021,
Correct.
stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, business must have taken a bit of a beating.
Correct.
And so in terms of, so two questions.
Yeah.
One is, in terms of how did you cope with those tough times? There's no cash flow, only outflow, no inflow.
Correct.
coming.
Correct.
How do you cope with that? And second is, maybe the other question is, there may have been a few things you tried which didn't work. Okay. Many things you've tried have worked, obviously, but there may be a couple of things which haven't worked.
Correct.
So just talk us through the pandemic experience. How was it coping with that at that time? And the second is, and also I remember you said 2018 is when you stepped in full time as the MD, and just about a year and a half after that is when all this happened.
Correct. So I think pandemic 2 years, I think has given me an experience of more than 20 years, because what I could have achieved in the next 6-7 years, I could do it in 2 years, because it makes a brand, person, a company, a promoter so strong from within, because supposedly I tell you that, MSI, from tomorrow you're going to be at the helm of this brand and going to run this. And suddenly you see that there are no days of revenue. Suddenly everything shuts shop, and you're this thing, and you're like, अरे यार कुछ तो हाथ में लिया एकदम से कैसे ये zero revenues is not part of my thing. I never came to take up things like this. So then is when you do everything at your end to generate revenue. So I think one good thing that we actually found in our pandemic times was how we can go online, how we can do video shopping, how customers, for example, my own mother, who would have known nothing about ordering anything from her phone, today is a big fan of ordering from phone. She's 65, 66 today, and she is totally phone savvy. And that is what I think pandemic has made her. It's not her choice. It wasn't her choice. So likewise, so many people have changed their way of working. And even for us, it's like you throw a kid in the pool और हाथ पैर मार के कुछ ना कुछ करके पहुंचना है वहाँ तक. So pandemic was like that for a lot of people. And for us also, it's similar situation. Retail, everything was hit hard. Retail was harder because suddenly zero revenues. But things like these keep coming. And we started doing video calls, like I said. We started speaking to customers. We got more connected to them. We asked them, can we give you some extra facility? When there were limited hours of working, if you remember, 8 o'clock in the morning to this. So somebody coming 8 o'clock and buying a sari was a big thing for us. So we never saw something like that happening around. And so we know that if there is an occasion, they were doing weddings of 20 people, not 500 people, not 1,000 people. So we were scared, will this become the way forward or not? A new norm. But luckily, I think after everything is over, people are out and about. It's come back to normal. People have started coming to stores. It's become more brick and mortar. It's become more bigger. Now the wedding is not bigger is the biggest. Now if you hear, like you said, 3 lakh crores of money is being spent, 2 lakh weddings happening in a month of December. All this is a very big number, because this wasn't the case earlier. People think it's a spillover of COVID, but it is not the spillover of COVID. The reason being, people now feel zindagi itni hai. Let's live it to the fullest. This may be my last celebration. I want to do the best possible. So for that best, you're doing everything possible around it, from a catering to a decor to a jewelry to a clothing to a footwear to buying something to purchasing to gifting. So many people are involved. When there's a wedding in a country, so many things are involved. So I think vibrance of COVID was this, that people came back stronger. Secondly, people who were not savvy video or things and buying things online, a 1 lakh rupee sari buying online is not possible. Trust me, it's not possible. Only if the person knows that I know this brand, I can really relate to it. Only then I will swipe my card. And we have a lot of NRI customers, people from the Indian diaspora who are there elsewhere in the country, in the world. And the way they buy is totally different, because they don't get to come here. In COVID 2 years, they were never coming to India, but they are fashion addicted. So they want to wear something new. Ab kahan se leke aaye? So reach out to their old brands and brands they know, and buy things online. Even a 50,000 rupee lehenga or a 2 lakh rupee Kanjivaram sari, they are willing to do that. because that was out of desperation. Now when they came, so to our list of festivals, now I always say that we have added another festival is we celebrate NRIs also now in countries.
I'm
So
going to ask you another question here, and this is something I've been thinking about for a while, right? So you're now a mid-sized brand,
right.
Presence in 50 stores and all that. So and I remember you telling me that all growth has been funded through internal accruals
Correct.
and debt sort of thing. I'm sure you must have been a fairly attractive acquisition target,
Right.
for a bunch of companies.
Correct.
Because
Correct.
you built a brand, you have a footprint across.
Correct.
So if suppose tomorrow someone were to come to you and say, listen, Avnish, I love your business, we like what you built, but we'd like to buy you.
Right.
How would you respond?
So it's not that. I've had a cup of coffee with a lot of like-minded friends in the industry of fashion, and let it be big ones, small ones, or any players that work in the equity space and everything. But my answer always is, see, it's very easy to say that, we build something and I want to sell it. But I say I'm just 33. I have 30 more to go. What will I do for my rest 30? So I need to build it even more further. So if you're happy to be around me and give me good guidance, or you want to, marry me and not just die me off by buying us off, that's never a question for the brand right now. It's all about making good alliances, good strategic alliances. There are a lot of opportunities that people are buying out good brands. Somebody who's just a regional, they want to pick it up and attach it and then make it a bigger story. So even for us, we are also looking very actively that there are some brands around, small, big sizes, where there can be some kind of acquisitions that we can also do, and also be a part of a bigger banner who can come on board and say that why not, let's make a good story of ethnic more bigger. You've done everything on your own funds and you've expanded so well. So for the muscle power to go more bigger numbers and to become a more vibrant and more available brand in the country, so you have to take a leap forward. Either you go public, or you go dilute your shares, get more nice equity funds around, or get to a good strategic partnerships. So I think the path is open. So I always say I'm 33 भाई, अब 30 साल और काम करेंगे, अच्छे से करेंगे. तो वो करने के लिए क्या solution available है, I'm ready to take it up. But that has to be something very alliance oriented. It's not one-sided story. It's always a good alliance.
Avnish, I'm going to come to the other part. And I think
Yeah.
we first met when you came along with the Young Entrepreneurs Association.
Correct. Yeah.
So I want you to two parts.
That's right.
One is how do you see, yourself participating in building the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Hyderabad? That's one
Correct.
question.
Right.
Second is there any, any 2 or 3 tips you would like to give to aspiring entrepreneurs who are just starting out based on your experience?
Correct.
These 2 questions. One is, how do you see yourself contributing to the Hyderabad ecosystem from
That's right.
perspective? And second is, any tips to aspiring young entrepreneurs?
So I think for the first question, I've been personally associated with a couple of organizations who are very entrepreneurial driven, and like one of them that we visited you a couple of weeks ago, and that was for young entrepreneurs, and likewise, and not just Hyderabad, I think entire state Telangana, where we actually keep meeting people from lots of walks of society and different segments. Somebody is from retail, somebody is from industry, somebody is from manufacturing, somebody is from tire, rubber, steel, fashion, apparel. So there's so much that is happening. And a very common question that I also get, because of being in the age I am and being one of the millennials, is that how will the second generation or the third generation or a big size family business take up this, and how can they actually proceed? So I think I will take this opportunity to tell you on T-Hub that why don't you do programs where you call on an open forum, young entrepreneurs who have been part of different brands and different companies, and do good forums of 100, 200 mid-size forums where people come hear them out, their stories, like how we are doing for Neeru's today. Maybe where and what aspires you don't know. So maybe I was in 2011 sitting in UK in my university watching a story on Richard Branson, but that is a huge banner of Virgin Airlines, and I am thinking that I'm a student today, how can I reach there? But there was always dil mein tha ki kuch na kuch karna hai. and let it be in my, because I loved my field, I loved my business of family. So I said, I can do something over here when I step in. So I had that zeal. Many have that zeal. Linking that to your second question, what is a tip? Is when you have that zeal, you got to execute it. So you have so much, you're dreaming of so many things, मेरे को ये करना है, वो करना है, ये करना है. But someone has to pat your back, push you through and say, boss, execute karo. You may fail, you may take that risk, you may have a success failure ratio. Forget about all of that. Unless you're executing your thoughts. Today, for example, I saw stores like Harrods, Selfridges in Bond Street, Oxford Street. My dream was to make a store like that in Jubilee Hills. And we were the first store on Jubilee Hills Road number 36 back then. Only restaurants, F&Bs. People said, who will come to Jubilee Hills Road number 36 to buy? वहाँ पे तो auto bus भी नहीं जाता है. It's a Hyderabadi story, just to give you a snippet. And today, road number 36 Jubilee Hills is the hottest and the most happening street for fashion and F&B, not only in Hyderabad, Telangana, but in the country. You name the brand who wants to come to Hyderabad, wants to have one store there. And for everybody, landmark is Neeru's. I wanted to create that landmark. But if I would have thought, I had a debate with my father back then. He said, it's too big. Let's just do a 4,000-5,000 square feet. I said, no, I want to do a big store. Will you fund me? Yes or no? He said, no, you're crazy. You can't do this, that. But I was pitching him. I was sales pitching him at that point of time. It's like a Shark Tank moment with your own father, and he tells you, "Okay, chalo, let's do it." And one fine day we find and we get the best architect, we do it, and today the output is there. Today we proudly say that it's called Neeru's Junction, which was not even considered as a street back then. So that's how it's all about executing. Agar I learned all of that and I don't come and execute it, then what's the point of gaining all that knowledge? And I have to hear like-minded people, the stories around. So, that's one thing that we lack in the country on an overall. There are no open forums. TED Talks keep happening, TEDx's keep happening, but very centric to millennials and youngsters when it happens on an open forum. We have so many places in Hyderabad where we can conduct all of this, T-Hub being one of them. So why not take opportunities like this and call everybody like a informal, like an impromptu, come, have good food, and let's just catch up over stories, and you don't know which story will bring up where. And I also want to tell a story that I was sitting at T-Hub and back in the 2023 and see today 2028 what we've built from that one talk at T-Hub. So everybody wants to build that kind of story.
Sure. Okay. So Avnish, thanks a ton. I think I've really enjoyed. I think we've spoken for about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And without realizing your time flies.
I know.
Thank you for all the, putting up with all my questions.
Right.
And providing some great insights. I'm sure a lot of young people will take inspiration from you, and also in terms of all the thoughts you had around fashion, sustainability, branding, some great inputs. So thank you very much. Pleasure having you here, and I will take you up on that idea of getting you much more involved with what's happening here. And obviously, I'm also looking forward to you funding many of our startups.
Definitely. I think pleasure's all mine. Thank you.